In the last lecture, we started implementing the burger builder, but a lot is missing. It's now time to continue our work there and make sure that we do add the burger related components and especially the burger ingredients. For that, I'll go to the components folder and I'll create a new subfolder which I'll name burger. Everything burger related shall go in there. And again, this is a good way of structuring your project because, as you might imagine, in bigger projects and very big projects, it can get hard to manage all these components since it is a good practice in React to create granular components and not big chunks. Now, if you have a lot of components, you have a lot of files, and to keep these files manageable, you want to create a folder structure which is not only divided in components and containers, but where inside the components and containers, you also divide it up by feature area so that you quickly know, okay, if I need to work on the burger side, I have to go into the burger folder. Now in there, we will add a couple of sub-components. For example, there I will add the burger.js file, which should be the burger we really are rendering to the screen. Now, I can already say that the burger alone won't do the trick though. We need ingredients in that burger, like the bread, the salad, the meat, the cheese, the bacon. So for that, I'll create another subfolder here, the burger ingredient. And in there, I'll add a burger ingredient.js file. And actually, I want to start with that ingredient because, well, that is actually what we need to render something to the screen. Now, for the burger ingredients, I prepared a CSS file you can find attached to this video, which contains a lot of CSS code to render burger ingredients with CSS only, without importing any image, which of course is great from a file size perspective. It means not that much code or content has to be downloaded by the end user. Now feel free to download that CSS code and paste it into a newly created file, the burger ingredient CSS file. Once you copied in what I just shared, you have all the CSS files you need to render burger ingredients. But that alone, of course, won't do anything. We also need to fill the burger ingredient component with life. That, as always, shall be a function, so a stateless component. And I'll name it burger ingredient. And I expect to get some props. And I want to return something, and I will use the curly braces because I actually want to run some logic before I return JSX. I will also import React here because I will write some JSX in the end. And of course, I will export this as the default, this function. And you may very well write a snippet for your editor for creating a stateless component because it always looks like this: React import, a function, and the export. Feel free to write a snippet for your editor. Now, back to our component though. We got our burger ingredient, and I said that I would need some logic to render the JSX code. This logic is required because there are different types of ingredients, and I expect to get the information about which ingredient to render via props. Now here I will create an ingredient variable and set it to null initially. So initially we won't render anything, for example, if something invalid is passed in. Now I will switch, normal JavaScript switch statement, and analyze the type of my ingredient. So type is a property I expect to receive. And now we have a couple of different cases. For example, bread bottom. You are free to define this case as you want. Just make sure to then use it throughout the application if you plan on passing, well, the bottom bread of your burger. CSS classes for all these things were defined here. We will apply them soon, and these will apply the correct stylings. So let's say we got a case bread bottom. Then my ingredient should actually be a div with the following class name. Now, for that, I need to import my classes, so I will quickly add that. Import classes from the burger ingredient CSS file. And then I want to assign classes bread bottom here. And you can see that class in the CSS file here, bread bottom. We also have bread top, we have seeds for on the bread, and then we got meat, cheese, salad, and bacon. So here we create the bottom bread, just like that. Let me add a semicolon and then break. Now let's add another case. The second case I want to check for is that we have bread top. This actually requires a bit of a different ingredient, not just a single div, but on the top bread there shall be some seeds. So here I actually return some multi-line JSX, where the outer div also receives class name and then classes bread top. But inside there I need two other divs which represent the seeds. So on the first div I'll add class name and then I have classes seeds 1, and I'll duplicate this to also have a div with seeds 2. So this is the alternative. Let's also break here. And now we can continue. The next case is that we have meat, let's say. If we have meat, then ingredient should be a div. And on that div, we will use class name. And you guessed it, classes meat. Now, feel free to complete this for all the other ingredients. You can see which these are in the CSS file. And simply create all cases for all ingredients you can identify here. I'll give you a chance to pause the video and try this on your own, and then we'll do it together. Were you successful? Let's now complete this together. It's actually pretty straightforward. We can now just copy the meat and enter it a couple of times here to also have cases for the cheese, where we apply the classes cheese class, then the bacon, where we apply the bacon class, and then finally the salad, where we apply the salad class. And by the way, if you want to implement this differently, and there certainly are alternatives to this big switch case statement, you are of course more than free to do so. Now let's also set up a default case here in case something incorrect is passed in, and there again ingredient shall be null. Now after this gigantic switch statement here, we can safely return the ingredient here. An ingredient is either null or one of our many divs. Now here's the thing we can do, and we will actually do in the next lecture. We can add prop type validation to it, because we want to make sure that we do receive a type property. Now, try this on your own. Feel free to try this on your own. In the next lecture, we'll together add the prop types package and add a prop type to verify that the type property really is passed into this component.